Okay, so maybe I'm not doing everything in order for you, but hopefully all the pieces will start to fit together for you. Okay, so we're going to go through the anatomy here again. I keep starting to go through the anatomy systematically, but then I get stuck on telling you about a piece of the anatomy. All right, but even though we're studying anatomy, all right, we're really just concerned with the whole foot as a structure. The internal foot and the external capsule, because what we just want this to be healthy, and we want this thing to fit it, all right? Okay, but we still need to know the parts of the foot. And then if somebody wants to, they can get into way more detail about how everything works. All right, so again, right here is your sole. You see that right there. The sole, that's your sole, and it grows from what's called the sole corium, which is right here. But even though it looks like it's flat, kinda, right here, in truth, and it just grows from the very, very bottom of your foot, just the very bottom here, it doesn't just grow from the very bottom. And this sole is not just covering the flat exterior or the flat bottom surface of the foot here. In reality, your sole is shaped like kind of like a saucer. Okay? Now you see here how this little V here, this is called the toe stay. All right? And this is formed, look at the sole right here. It looks kind of like a little check mark right there, doesn't it? Now you have to picture that you have this form, this little, what looks to be a check mark. It surrounds the whole perimeter of this foot right here. And so the foot sits in kind of a little saucer of sole, meaning that there's a little lip of sole that comes right up over the edge here. See, if you look, your sole, the lamina, which the wall grows down and connects to here, it ends before it gets to the total bottom. It doesn't end here. It doesn't end there. It ends right here. And so your sole lifts up and slightly curls around the bottom perimeter of the internal foot here. Because the sole corium starts right here. Let's see, where is it? Right here. All right, so even though it may look like this, a lot of times when you start getting a good foot, you're going to see a big, let's see, how would I describe it? A ridge of sole surrounding the perimeter of the foot around here.
Okay, here's Valor's foot, and I want to show you what I mean by a sole ridge. Now, he did not always have this. Okay, so I'm going to take this yellow highlighter here, and I'm going to highlight the ridge that grows, that little check mark area there that grows up around the lip of the internal foot. Okay, so, well, now why aren't you working? Oh, there you go. Okay, so this grows right here. See that sole ridge? Actually, it's right about there. This sole ridge is what I call the toe stay, which when it grows out from the edge of the internal foot, and makes this ridge of sole all the way around the foot. And so when the wall is not in its correct location, that would be the rim of the wall right here, is not correct, you're going to have it's going to be very thin. Notice how it's thicker on this side than it is on this side. That's because this heel slightly run forward and it has pushed the wall out that way. And so the horn tubules that are connected to the sole right here are not in their exact correct position, so it's a little thinner over here, but it used to be totally hollow. As well, your pillar area here, see, here's a pillar, that sole ridge goes clear in there. And you can see it kind of right here. The pillar area here is going to be a little thicker. And if the pillars are right, the sole in the pillar will be thicker than the sole in the toe. It's just the way the sole is designed right here in the side of the foot. That is why you got to have these pillars correct, because if they're long and they pull out this way from the internal foot, then that's going to thin the sole down right here in the pillar area. So a good foot, and when you know you're starting to get things right, you're going to start seeing this rim of sole all the way around the foot. And this is what develops most of the concavity to the foot, because I teach and show that the sole is not really just concave, but that it's convex. It partakes of being both, it's crescentric. That means that it is both convex and concave. It is convex in this sole ridge, going like this. See, that is convex. And then it goes concave like that. So that's pretty much how it's shaped. All right, so I just want to put that little ditty in here for you.
You see that a lot in wild horses. They'll have a big old ridge of sole. Well, that's because that's the natural shape. See? It'll be like this. Okay, so here is your sole. And here is the sole corium from which it grows. But again, it extends up on the exterior outer surface here. It's not just flat. Now here is what you call your frog corium from which your frog grows. All right, this is the frog that grows from it. Okay, when we talk about the apex of the frog, where there's the apex of the internal frog corium, which is right here, and then there's the apex of the external frog padding that grows from it, which should be not too far in front of it, not too far in front of it, which is right here. Do you see that? Let's get that up there so you can see it. See how it's just kind of in front of it there? I'm trying to give you a good view. Now, so when we're talking about mapping the foot, okay, to find out where this internal foot is, because all we're seeing is that. So where's that internal foot in there? Well, these are markers that help us locate it. See? So, when we're talking about the apex, true, okay, this is the apex of the frog. The true apex is, let's see if I can explain this. You see, when this frog gets long and grown and the horse is walking, a lot of times it can smash up, and the frog padding here can wind up, even though the true apex might be right here, because it's grown long and been smashed, you're going to look on the foot and it could be right here. Okay, that's going to give you a false reading. That's why you got to take your hoof knife and kind of dig down the tip here to where you find that the sole and frog meet, and it'll be rounded, to find your true apex of the frog. Because there's usually a very general measurement from the true apex of the frog, once you find it, to where the end of the inner foot is here at the sulcorium. And so you want to know where this foot ends inside the capsule. That's why you have to know where the true apex of the frog is right here. And then you have the apex of the frog corium, and you see that that is just a little behind the true apex of the frog. Now, this particular foot, what can happen when a toe gets real stretched out here? It can stretch this forward right in here as well, clear up into here, so you'll get a false reading if you have a real long toe. But we will discuss other things that you can look at to tell where the true foot is. Because see, what ultimately happens is this whole sole, this whole part of the foot here, because remember, this gets pulled down and underneath, right, and shoved forward, and it's putting pressure on this whole sole and frog and everything and pushing it forward. Meanwhile, a lot of times in the wall here, it's grown out like this, and it's pulling things forward as well. So this whole frog and the sole in here can get all stretched forward to where you would even dig down to this area right here, but it's been stretched forward. And I've seen frogs that were clear up to the tip, stretched forward, clear up to the tip of the coffin bone here. Well, so this is why a lot of things, we have to know where this internal foot is so that we know how long our toe really is, because everything can look very deceiving. All right. So again, we have to find the true, this is just the apex, but we have to find the true apex, which we find by trimming this apex down a little bit to see where the sole and the frog blend together and meet. And as I said, it'll be kind of rounded there when you dig it out. Okay, now, another thing we have to know how to find is what I call the dimple of the frog, or the base of the frog, because these are two areas that we have to mark. We have to find the true apex of the frog, and we have to find the base, or the dimple of the frog, which is back here. And this is usually located, let's see, you have a central sulcus right here, and at the end, okay, right here, you see this frog corium? It has a little kind of nipple, dimply thing sticking out there. I don't know if you can see that. Well, generally, it's right here. This is what we're trying to locate. It'd be the end of what's called the central sulcus, which is right here. This is the central sulcus, right in here, and it'd be right at the end of it. See? Right? Well, now I gotta look at it, because I cut half of this frog off. Okay. It's gonna be right here. Sometimes it's hard to locate when your frog is all grown in, so you need to trim your frog up. It's a little bit hard to locate. That's one way to find it. Now this frog here is slightly, what I was telling you about how this, when your heel runs forward, it'll pull all this forward. That is what was happening to this foot. See how the heel is run forward here? It's pulled all this down and back and under. Well, it also has pulled and pushed the frog here forward slightly as well. Now, when you get all this corrected up, all this stuff will return to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so the two areas you got to mark in order to find, we want to find this, and we want to trim past it just enough so that the wall, which should grow like this, but maybe your wall is growing clear out like this. You see how when the horse walks, if your wall was clear out there, it's going to put pressure pulling this part forward and away from the wall here. Okay, of the inner foot. So, again, we want to find the true apex of the frog. We want to find the base or dimple of the frog. And those are two areas that we want to mark, because that area represents 2/3 of the foot. Because when a foot has the correct dimensions, just a second here. When a foot has the correct dimensions, you're going to have 2/3 of the foot behind the true apex of the frog. Let me see, where is the true apex of the frog here? Well, I'm right to it. Right here. When the foot has the correct dimensions, you're going to have 2/3 of the foot behind the true apex of the frog. See, that'd be 2/3 from here to here is 2/3 of the foot. And 1/3 in front of the true apex of the frog. So these are the dimensions that would be correct for the horse to have for the capsule to be generally fitting upon this internal foot in the correct way. You know, if you have half of the foot back here and the other half down here, you know something's wrong there. Okay, so again, 1/3 of the foot in front of the true apex of the frog and 2/3 behind it. And the way that we start this measurement, again, is finding the true apex of the frog now and finding the base of the frog. But again, this whole thing can be pulled forward like that. Yeah, and we'll learn how to recognize that. And there can be different degrees of that, because the whole sole can be actually sitting here instead of back where it's supposed to be. That's wall everything. This whole area can be very deceiving. In fact, you could have a foot that looks just like this, but this whole area could be sitting here. Well, this whole area could actually be sitting here. Now, just like on our feet, we want the bottom of the sole of our shoe here to fit correspondingly on where it's supposed to be on the bottom of our foot. Is not that correct? But with the horse, everything can get so shoved and pulled forward that this whole thing here could actually be setting like down here. But it's all covered up by periopal, this periopal skin here. That stuff can stretch like you would not believe. Yeah, and just make it look like the foot is almost normal if we only look at the sole. But then if we looked at the side, we would see that our heel would be run forward like this. Our toe would be clear out here like so. Now, another way to tell. Let's see, do I want to go through that yet? Well, there are other ways to find the true apex of the frog if it just so happens that the whole sole of the foot has been displaced and is way forward up here. One of those ways is, and a lot of that depends too on what's going on with the angle of the foot. So, but if you go straight down about through here, you'll find where the true apex of the frog is. See there? Can you see the, or get in the general area? See, there's the apex, true apex of the frog right there. I want to. If you go down about like so, you run right into it, don't you? Okay? But see, of course, we don't see this part of the foot. Ugh. What we got going for us is this. So if you can kind of determine straight down from about there, let's see if I can, okay, let's see if I got there. Okay, so I'm right here. All right, see there? That doesn't mean that I would want to dig out my frog here to there. But that's giving me a general, excuse me, that's giving me the general idea where it is. You know, it's very hard to get it exact because depending on the angle of the internal foot and how you come down from here, you can wind up in back of it or in front of it. See? That angle changes things. And horses, the way the foot sits in the capsule, depending on the hoof distortion. And we would mark the base, and we would mark the true apex, and then from there, we measure forth a certain distance to locate where the end of this internal foot is. Now, we don't want to cut our wall right to there. See there? And the reason that we don't do that is because the wall grows forward, right? So it since it's growing forward and it has some length to it right here, we also have to add on, see, if we were to cut our toe right there at the end of the internal foot, what would happen? See how it would take out all the sole? Okay, so we have to add to that general measurement a little bit because, again, the wall doesn't just grow down, it grows forward. So we want to have enough length in our toe that we're allowing the wall to grow down past this internal foot and have some sole with it under the rim here. All right, so I'm going to take a little break on that and I'll come back. Okay, so when we are mapping the foot, as it's called, we're doing this because we're trying to find the general location of the internal foot. And that also helps us determine how much distortion may be in the toe of the hoof capsule, how far this toe is stretched out forward. Okay, so this is why we have to find the true apex of the frog and the base of the frog. That is the first thing that we want to find. Next thing we want to find is we want to find where is the widest part of the foot. And there's 3 different ways to do this. One, we follow the bar to the end, where it ends right here. Unfortunately, because some bars have been damaged and distorted, they're not always going to end in the same spot. Usually, the end of the bar will show us the widest part of the foot. Now, the widest part of the foot is where, when you're looking at the capsule here, okay, where it will be widest and then start to recede this way and then start to recede that way. Like in a circle, widest part of a circle. All right? So, one way we find it is by looking from the seat of the corn here to about here, which is called, this area from here to here is called the quarter. All right, and so we want to kind of find the center of that. So the end of the bar, the center of the quarter, would bring us to about right here. And that would show us, on this capsule, what is the widest part of the foot. And you notice that that's slightly behind the true apex of the frog here. Right about there. Now, the true widest part of the foot is what we want to find. And what you find a lot of times in a capsule like this that's been shoved forward is the widest part of the foot will not be at the true widest part of the foot, because the true widest part of the foot would be the widest part of the internal foot. And the true widest part of the internal foot is where the coffin bone ends. I'll show you on another capsule. Right here. This is where the coffin bone ends, right here. You see that? Well, actually, yeah, that'd be the true widest part of the foot at the end of the coffin bone. Let's see. Where is the true widest part of the foot? Okay, here's where the bar ends. Right here. So right. Let's see. I'm not holding it straight. Right in here. See that? Okay, but again, when this whole sole of the foot has been shoved forward up here, that means the whole area and displaced from underneath the foot, the true widest part of the foot is still going to be back here. Okay, but on the capsule, it's going to show up back here. And you'll see a lot of horses where if you find the widest part of their foot just by looking, it's clear back here. And that's not where it's supposed to be. And that's because the whole part of this foot has been displaced forward. And you'll notice that as you do your corrective trimming, the toe, the quarters, the heels, everything comes back into place, that the widest part of the foot will move back as well. Because, see, you have a capsule here, and this whole capsule on the bottom can be displaced and forward, sitting forward out from under the actual true part of the foot. This is the true foot here. When we talk about the true foot of the horse, okay, we're not talking about this thing that grows from it. We're talking about the inner foot. And this capsule has to follow and set within a certain location of this foot right here. Okay. So we do want to find the widest part of the foot in our mapping, but the widest part of the foot can be totally dislocated from where it's truly supposed to be. And it was in realizing this that it really helped me to start getting my feet right and mapping correctly. Okay, so if we can find where the true apex of our frog is, then the base of our frog, then we can measure that, and that will give us a measurement that we will divide in half to find how far or how long this area of the capsule should be from the true apex of the frog to the end of the wall, or at least to the white line. Now I'm going to show you how I do this. Okay, so I come in, I'll trim away right here, just to where the frog is down to where it meets the sole. So on this, probably be right about here. Right about here. And I will mark that right there. Usually I'll make a mark all the way across, but I don't want to mar up my foot. Okay, then I'll go down here and I'll find the dimple. The dimple, which his is moved forward a little bit. It's right here, but that's still going to give me the true basic reading because his heels, as you see, are run forward. So it's affecting his frog a little bit, pushing it forward. So right here at the dimple. And also, another way to tell is right here. You look at where the periopal ends, right here. If you follow it all the way across, you're going to be right about there at where the dimple needs to be. Sorry, this ain't showing up very good. But basically, your dimple is at the end of the central sulcus as well, right here. Okay, so I'll make 2 marks, and then I will measure. Let's see. Do we want to measure in inches? We'll do both. And I see right here that his foot, well, if we went to where the dimple padding is, it would be 2 3/4 inches. Or 3 inches. About 3 inches. All right? So I'm going to take 1.5 inches. 3 inches. Half of that is what? So 2/3 of his foot is 3 inches long. Do you see that? So what would the 1/3 in front of the true apex of the frog be? It's going to be 1.5 inches, right? Okay, so here's my 1.5 inch mark. Right there. Okay, I'm going to come up here to the true apex of the frog. Let's go mark it over here because I can't get my ruler to fit in there. I'm going to go over here to the true apex of the frog. Hold that up, and you see that that comes right to the white line, right on this side of the white line. Just a minute. Let me put this up here. You see that? No, you don't. Just a minute. Let me hold this up here. Having a hard time doing this. Let's do it like that. That's still not right. Hold on. Let's get it this way. Okay. Let's hold this right up to here. Okay, do you see that? No, you don't. Wait a minute. There we go. See how that goes? Where I've marked the true apex of the frog and how it goes right up to either the white line or just the other side of the white line. Okay. Now, I would do that. Then I would, let's see, I would hold my little ruler up. It's better if you use a flexible ruler. And I would mark right here. I would know that I got a pretty good toe on that horse. That it's about the right distance, it's the right distance, and that by all, my wall is probably good connected to my internal foot. See, this wall has a good connection, and one way you can tell it has a good connection is notice how it's slightly curved outward, like this. Okay. Oh, what did I do? Now look at your coffin bone. Your coffin bone slightly curves outward, right? See? It ain't straight up and down, is it? On this particular foot, the wall also has a slight curve to it right here. So I know that by my measurements here, and from here to here, and by the shape of the wall, that I got a pretty good foot going here, at least in this part of it, in the connection of the wall to the internal foot. So I know that I don't have to back this toe up. I haven't got sole. I haven't got sole that's sticking clear out here. All right. So that is how you basically map the foot. But there's more to reading a foot than just looking at the sole and doing a bunch of measurements. Because as I said, you could have a totally messed up foot, because you could have a foot that looks like this, but it's sitting down here. It's not on the internal foot here. And even this foot. Okay? This foot is real good as far as right in the toe right here, but it has some issues in the heel. Now, the heels are slightly run forward. What's going to happen when those heels run forward? Okay, all of this is going to be pulled under, and it's going to be smashing all your heel right here. It's going to make that horse not really want to walk on his heels, isn't it? Probably land toe first. Because this is all sensitive. It can hurt. If everything back here is being pushed up and all this right here is being smashed forward by hard hoof wall and sole, that's not going to feel that good. Now, see, all that's being crushed. Let's take a look at this. This right here should relatively set pretty close, almost directly under this. Just maybe a slight bit forward. Let's see where it's at. Okay, see this right here? Now, the sole does grow forward slightly, so it is going to be slightly forward of this area right here, because see, the wall grows forward, doesn't it? Okay, but it's growing too much forward here because all this has been pulled down and running like that. So this right here is actually not sitting under the right location of this right here, of the heel. Let's see. Well, let's put this up here. We're looking at this little triangular area of sole here called the seat of the corn. Look how far off it is. Okay? Now, if all this was to straighten up like that, it would bring this back further under the foot so that this wasn't crushing and pushing forward on all this right here. See that? Now, so what we want to do is try and get that to straighten up. If that wouldn't have been going on in this foot, this would have been a really good foot. Right? Okay. So if this area is displaced, this means that the widest part of the foot is also a little displaced forward. Now, even though the toe right in here is correct, there are still some issues going on in this whole back of the foot. This foot's getting kind of rank too, I gotta tell you that much. Oh, look, I can only use it for this so much longer. Put that plastic back on it. Okay. I got more I need to explain here, but I'm getting really tired. Okay, now let's put our thinking caps on here. Because we're going to talk about, in this next little ditty, we're going to talk about the belief in that the horse's hoof is arched right here. Now, if you were to look at that, you would think for sure the horse's hoof was arched, wouldn't you? But what if I was to tell you that they have taken what is a common hoof distortion and they've turned it into a piece of the anatomy? See, if you read on these barefoot sites and even farrier sites and all that, they're going to talk about how the hoof has a natural arch from here to here. Not so much farriers as, I don't think, but definitely natural hoof care people and barefoot people. The hoof has a natural arch, and so when you're trimming, they want you to do what they call scooping or relieving the arch, because the horse has a natural arch. Okay? And if you look at lots of hooves, you would surely think they do have a natural arch. And so you're thinking that there's a natural arch, obviously, in this part of the foot as well, right? From here to here. There'd have to be an arch right here. Is not that correct? Okay, now you can't really see it on here because, I've removed the sole corium. But we'll look at some pictures, hopefully. And you'll see that there is no arch on this foot. Now, what's the true foot of the horse? It's this foot here. It's not this foot here. This thing can get distorted into all kinds of odd shapes that do not follow. Uh-oh. Yeah. See, it can get distorted and blurred. Let's see. Come on. There we go. It can get distorted. This hoof capsule can get distorted into all kinds of shapes that do not follow this internal foot right here. Okay? And when you study this foot here, there is no arch on the rim of this foot here. There is no arch. The rim right here, this part right here, does not have an arch. It does not go like that. It does not go like that. Now you're looking under here. Don't look under there. Okay? Because there is an arch. Once you get past the rim here, there is an arch under here. Okay? But because of the way the sole corium is, because of the way the coffin bone is in the hoof, this rim here is perfectly smooth and does not have an arch. Okay? Let me see if I can show you. There is no arch there. That is all filled up with sole corium and is smooth along the side. Now, why is it
I felt
that
the
nobody
need
has
to explain what I'm explaining right here. This is a better picture of that internal foot I'm using. And what I have done here is I have, just a second here. Hold on, gotta get my markers right. Well, that ain't gonna work. Never mind. Okay, what I have done here is I have cut out part of the sole corium right here. And so that you can see the coffin bone. Now the sole corium and the lamina covering that covers the coffin bone and makes the coffin bone here and all the cartilage in the heel makes it all into the one foot, right? Okay, well, what you will notice is that the corium and this covering of the sole corium and lamina right here, it gets thicker as it moves towards the back of the foot. Like it's a lot thicker right here where the heel starts. Remember, this is the quarter in between here and here. Here's your heel. It gets thicker. So, even though this looks flat, and it's not very good, from there to there, like it's all one continuous line filled up with sole corium underneath there. Okay, not very good, but you get the general drift. Okay, let's put on a different marker here. The coffin bone sits within this foot at an angle. Do you see the angle of the coffin bone? That's the angle of the coffin bone within the foot. But the sole corium here, from here to here, starts getting thicker as it goes to there. So see, no matter what, this coffin bone does not sit flat within the foot. See, when we're talking about the foot, we're not just talking about a bone, we're talking about the lateral cartilages as well, and the covering that is built over this whole area here, which this lip of material that is like a Dr. Scholl's gel pad insert or covering for the whole foot, but right around here, the base of the coffin bone, starting here, it starts to get thicker and thicker and thicker till right here, it's in here, it's at its thickest. And so that makes this bone here fit at an angle. Okay, so I wanted to explain that. All right.
This. Okay, why is it that nobody noticed that that coffin bone is sitting at an angle in that foot? Okay, where it's covered up by sole corium. You can't see that coffin bone when all the sole corium and the lamina, the covering, is there. See, this is perfectly smooth. Right there, going from here to here on the internal foot. It is not shaped like this. It's not shaped like this. See that little arch there? So why is it that we have an arch there? Even if we were to trim this foot down to the level of the sole, all the way around here, and then set it back down, we're going to have an arch. In fact, I might go do that here in a minute. All right, we're going to have an arch. Why is it that we have an arch? Well, we have an arch because, and I'm going to put some stuff together to show you an example. We have an arch because this area of the wall that should be up here like this has been pulled around and shoved forward. And when that happens, it creates an arch. It makes this whole wall, first of all, this wall will generally buckle outwards or it will compress forward, and it will create an arch there in the hoof capsule that shouldn't be there, because this wall, which should have been about like so, all pushed down and shoved forward. And then this, a lot of times it'll come out in what looks to be a flare, but it's not a flare. It's the way the structure of the wall has had to change due to this whole area being shoved forward. And it creates an arch here. It not only creates an arch under here, but it creates an arch here, from here to here as well. So it not only shoves this portion of the foot up, it shoves the hairline up here as well as, look how the hairline dips right here. See, this whole thing has just been shoved forward like this. Remember, when your wall is like this, not only are these horn tubules shoving forward, and they're shoving forward into the horn tubules that are in front of them, but the wall back here is being pushed backwards and pulled down. So when this whole area of wall goes cattywampus like that, and it makes an arch here, it also makes an arch here, shoving the hairline up where it shouldn't be. Let's look at this. Let's look at the form. Again, where's the true form of the foot? Where is the true foot of the horse? It's what's inside that you can't see. Right? Now, here's your coronary band, which is hidden behind here. Remember in the other one, you got the coronary band groove of the hoof capsule right here that this coronary band sits in, right? Okay. So that's hidden behind here. And it's attached to this part of the foot. So, now, if this was this foot's about a year old and it was frozen, okay? And so it hasn't, everything on it, when I took the hoof capsule off, it didn't go quite back into the place the way it might have on a very fresh foot. And of course, this is getting kind of rotten here, and the blood has gotten black, and so it's a little bit hard to see. But this coronary band has a nice sloping angle starting here, except for where it's been really forced and shoved up right there. Starting here, going back to here, there's a certain angle. You see that? See how that angle just comes up right there? That's the top of your coronary band. Well, I got some cut marks here. And it's a little, I tore the hoof off of it, so it's kind of hard to see. But it starts right here, and it goes right here. Now let's look at this one. That's quite a different shape, isn't it? See, not as pronounced. There's not as a pronounced curve that goes like that, like on the other side. It's more generally sloping. See? Like so. This one looks this way because the wall has been cattywampus up like that and pushed it up into an unnatural position there. So if you can get this straightened out, get this wall here, which is growing at an angle like this, let's see, come back a little bit and relift the bulb and the lateral cartilage up to where it's supposed to be, and the heel, like so, that's going to take this so-called arch completely out of the hoof capsule. All right, now, this horse didn't have too bad a hoof capsule, and she had pretty straight heels. You see that? She had some support. The heel buttress back here was actually supporting the bulb rather than pulling everything down and forward. And she does not really have an arch. Now, I did not trim the pillar quite correct. This is the pillar, what you call the pillar area right here. And so it looks a little square right here. But if I were to round this off better, you're going to find that this horse really did not have an arch. You know, but there might be a slight arch. See, and you'll find that there's going to be different, what you think, arches on all these hooves. That's because there's a different level of how the heel has dropped and the hoof wall, instead of picking everything up like so, has dropped and run forward. Do you see that? That's what creates that arch. And so this can become a real problem when you're trying to trim your horse, because you're trying to get a nice smooth flat surface here and get to the white line. But to do so, you have to really, really get in this area. I've seen a lot of times where people couldn't seem to get a clean white line here. Okay? Now, as the foot straightens up, as you get your heels back here straightened up so that this wall here is lifted up and supporting the bulb rather than dragging it underneath the foot, okay, this arch will go away more and more and more. And not only that, because this hoof wall is attached to the sole here, you'll start getting a correct rim of sole and thickened sole around the perimeter of your foot. Alrighty then, that's all I got for right now.